There's lots of sports jobs to be had in various places. The trick is to finding ones that are sustainable for you financially, because you are looking at 70-hour work weeks, but being paid for about a 25-hour work weeks.
This is the Sports Business Classroom audio experience. If you recognize the voice, let me put a name with it. I'm Bo Estes, a host on NBA TV and an announcer on NBA.com. I'm one of the instructors at SBC. Welcome to the show. Now, breaking into the world of sports can seem daunting, but if you're looking for a leg up, you've come to the right place. Each week, we talk to top-notch figures all across the industry to bring you lessons and advice to learn from. Thanks for spending some time with us today, and let the experience begin. Sports Business Classroom is an immersive sports business training and educational experience unlike any other. In addition to this podcast, SBC provides numerous opportunities for those looking to break into and grow in the world of professional sports. One opportunity that I'd specifically like to tell you about today is the CBA Mastery course with none other than Larry Kuhn. Larry is undoubtedly, and I can't stress this enough, undoubtedly the leading expert on the collective bargaining agreement. And he has been teaching the materials to teams, agents, media, and students for over 20 years as an expert on the topic. Now, for the first time ever, he has an online course containing all of his material available for purchase to the general public. So, if you're looking to work in an NBA front office one day, this information is imperative to know. And by completing this course, you can not only learn the material, but you can become an expert in it as well. Larry Kuhn's CBA Mastery course is presented by SBC and is a surefire way to put yourself in a position to land a killer job in the business of basketball. Registration is now open, so visit sportsbusinessclassroom.com today to take a step toward the career of your dreams. The Sports Business Classroom audio experience is brought to you by Hall Pass Media and Hall Pass Studios. Hall Pass Media is a full-service marketing agency that specializes in brand consulting, event management, digital marketing, and creative design. Hall Pass has a wide range of clients and partners that include the NBA Summer League, the NBA Coaches Association, and the basketball tournament, just to name a few. For more information, please visit hallpassnetwork.com. You know, so many of our guests on the Sports Business Classroom audio experience work in sports. That only makes sense. It stands to reason. But Sean Pate, the brand communications officer at Zenni, comes to us from a slightly different perspective. You see, Zenni sells high-quality eyeglasses at affordable prices in the online space. That's what they do. That's who they are. But Sean saw some partnership opportunities in the world of sports. His ability to create those partnerships and sell the value to both professional sports teams and his own ownership group is a unique talent. And Sean explains to us how it was done. All right, Sean, thanks so much for joining us. In listening to some of your other interviews online and reading up about you, one of the things that sort of struck me is that you seem to be attracted to these consumer experience technology companies. And first of all, that's a mouthful for me, but it's something to think about, really. So what about Zenni fit for you, and what challenges excited you when you started looking at this?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me first, Bo. Appreciate the time and good to be with you and all your listeners. I think for me specifically with Zenni is that it was key that it was an emerging brand, or really an underappreciated, underserviced brand. The company was a very small startup by two founders that really ran it like a mom and pop shop for over a decade. Very lean and mean, very focused on acquisition, very focused on direct marketing and word of mouth, of course. So the brand Zenni did not really have any resonance with consumers until recently. When I came into the company, it's a local company. I live in the Bay Area. We're a Bay Area company born and raised. And so outside of the logistics of it and always looking for the new opportunities that are in the Bay Area, I got really intrigued by the fact that this business was so successful as an e-commerce company making a product that is really of interest to 2/3 of the United States, talking about eyeglasses, but it had really no recognition. And I'm not an eyeglass wearer myself. I'm wearing blue light blocking glasses that have become very popular, certainly this year, but in a lot of respects. But so many people do. And when I started to research the company and understand what they were trying to disrupt and how they were doing it and how successful they had been, I just saw a golden opportunity to come in and really take this brand to another level. And that was really, a play on timing. The company had not felt comfortable investing in its brand, more spent money, all its profits on its manufacturing, which has paid out great dividends for us. So that's kind of started the process for me. My background, of course, is in consumer technology, e-commerce companies, StubHub most prominently, Ancestry.com. And those two brands, I think, similar time that I got into them, also were looking to really extend themselves to the masses after they've really had figured out a solid way to market their business.
So for somebody who's trying to follow in your footsteps and learn from the path that you've taken, you get into Zenni day one, you get the job, you close the door, you're in your office. Now you've got to tackle this job. What are your thoughts on that day? What are you trying to do? What work goes into this path that you've created going forward on that day one when you get in that office?
Wow. Yeah. Big question. And it's interesting because part of the excitement of this job and part of the evolution of this job is that what I was hired to do is nothing of what not nothing, but little of what I do today. The company had been focused at that point on really its PR strategy, communications, and really driving earned media coverage. That's where a lot of my background is in the PR world. I've done that for a lot of the brands I've worked with. And the marketing was still very much performance related. As I got in the door, and my former boss was a brand marketer at heart, but also running many lines of businesses within the company, it was glaringly obvious that this company needed to invest itself in partnerships, in sponsorships, and had the solvency to do so. So, I had been at a ticket startup company prior to Zenni called Game Time, which had a lot of momentum in its early years, but as a young company, just did not have the resources financially to do anything that wasn't really acquisition related, although the opportunity and the need was probably there because it was playing in a field of very crowded space of prominent ticket companies, StubHub, SeatGeek, the others. Zenni, really, its major competition in its lifespan has been a company called Warby Parker, which many eyewear consumers are familiar with, and it's probably about half the age of Zenni. But the Warby Parker sort of started their business with a top-down mentality. We're going to tell this story. We're going to stylize our brand. We're going to make it aspirational. And we have the founders that are very media savvy and able to do this in a kind of a VC world and a business world that was sort of the model that so many other D2C brands followed in the last decade. And of course, they started their business online and quickly migrated to more of a retail opportunity, whereas Zenni has stayed tried and true online as a D2C brand and was having great success with it. So back to your question, when I came in the door, the founders were clearly recognizing that they missed an opportunity. Zenni's model of owning its own manufacturing obviously was extremely expensive, and many of the profits over many of the years were poured right back into developing our manufacturing facility, which is one of the largest in the world. And so that in and of itself has set Zenni up for massive success now and into the future. But in truth, it sort of hindered the company's ability to grow in the near term because of the lack of mind share. So our founders wanted me basically to get us this visibility that a Warby Parker has, and it's certainly more than just getting media coverage. So it started to evolve from there, and I took a lot of knowledge I have just in general broad-based marketing, and saw the places that we weren't playing in and started to go from there.
It seems to me, just in listening to you talk, that Zenni's getting the best version of Sean Pate. What did you learn along the way that you said, okay, this is a company I worked at. Here's the things they did well. Here's the things that I think we can improve on at Zenni. You know, and I know you've taken several different jobs along the way. Mm-hmm. What did you learn along the way that you said, I can use this at Zenni now?
That's funny. Yeah, it's I think I'm definitely the most experienced version of Sean Pate. That's for sure. And I've been through a few battles and have a few gray hairs, so I'm definitely have seen.
Welcome to the club, Sean. Welcome to the club.
Yeah, and I'm fighting them off. Believe me. I think. Well, and again, I just mentioned my prior stop at Game Time, and it was a really interesting kind of juxtaposition, because Zenni, despite the fact that it's a 17-year-old company, very much thinks and acts like a startup. It is the highest functioning startup that you will ever see. And again, we use that term a little bit loosely in business today, startup. Uber is still a startup. I mean, is it really? I mean, it's
sure.
It's not, but because it hasn't been around for decades, if we're considered startup. Well, in reality, a true startup is young in age, young in its development, low in funding. And Zenni was not any of those things. They had carved out a niche. They had conquered a market and were just poised to expand it. And part of the learnings that I had at the previous company, where I was just salivating to invest in some of these brand-oriented efforts for Game Time specifically, there was an aversion and a hesitancy by the founders there to do that, because it wasn't immediately ROI positive. It's a longer play. The stock market analogy plays. Do you want to day trade, or do you want to invest and see how it plays out? And there are some tried and true methods and a lot of benchmarks and success stories on having done that. But you got to have the risk tolerance. You obviously have to have capital, and you have to be with the mindset that this is what I want to do. And it's really interesting to see young startups take different tracks. And there's really not a wrong path, but when you're talking about being in a potential vertical that you have a lot of competition and you need to make noise, word of mouth is only going to take you so far. And Zenni is a fantastic example of running as far and as long as you can on the back of SEO, digital marketing acquisition, emails, or word of mouth. And that grew the company to probably, in reality, about $150 million in revenue, annually, which is fantastic. This was about 3 years ago. But you start to see the diminishing returns. You start to recognize that Zenni specifically had captured the low-hanging fruits in the eyewear industry, those consumers that were needing to find the best low-cost alternative, desperate for cost savings, didn't have insurance, unable to afford even glasses from your eye doctor or anywhere else. And so I think a lot of those consumers found Zenni, again, through web searches and word of mouth and otherwise.
So it seems like you've hit all those points if you're a company, and then Sean comes in and says, where do we grow from here? And what opportunities and what pathways do we take? Tell me what some of those decisions you made from there were.
Well, first and foremost, and we have some really significant partnerships that we can go into later, that some of which came about serendipitously and others came about obviously strategically. But Zenni had no experiential arm. People that literally could not interact with Zenni. We had yet to roll out our virtual try-on, so there was always the bridge, or actually the gap that we needed to bridge from this element of touching and feeling. You're wearing glasses. You've at least tried them on. One of the things that I became aware of as a non-glasses wearer, certainly sunglasses wearer, I mean, the most key element to the purchase process is the try-on. Right?
Yep.
Trusting whatever entity you're buying your glasses from, that your lenses are going to be what you need to see well, right? It's like, it's almost irrelevant to you unless there's a certain coding or feature that you may know of. But otherwise, that is sort of just handed to you in a concierge manner. It's the physical try-on that is so important that people love to do, and that's how they really test fit and look and fashion and all those things. And Zenni, of course, sacrifices that in order to offer glasses at about 80% off of retail and do that in a digital manner.
And I think that's important. What you said, 80% off retail.
Yeah,
that's what we're talking about here. And so there's the numbers. I went on the website were stunning compared to if you go to your eye doctor. It's not even the same ballpark. And I wonder if people are willing to take a risk almost and say, well, look, this is a $30 pair of glasses. If it's not perfect, maybe I learned something from the try-on experience and I use Zenni again, and I fine-tune my approach when I go to that website. Is that fair?
Very much so. And that is exactly why we have the millions and millions of customers that we do, because those that have heard about Zenni, and maybe not even would believe the pricing. And that's one of the elements of our marketing that has been like a blessing and a curse. Our glasses start, a pair of prescription glasses start at $6.95.
See, that seems unbelievable. It really does.
Really unbelievable. We actually had a TV campaign a couple years ago that sort of played off that, just unbelievable reality where we were showing aliens and Yetis and things that are also unbelievable. But the reality is that it's so unbelievable and so ahead of its time. That $6.95 number has been out there for 10 years. That's something that the founders feel very, very strongly about and don't want to disrupt that entry level price for a single vision pair of glasses and a good pair of frames.
Sure.
But when you're leading with that message, $6.95, and everybody else is averaging $275,
yep.
Or even if you're Warby Parker and you're coming out and we're $95, which is effectively kind of a half price of what the traditional retail is, you're still presenting something that almost feels too good to be true, or it must be cheap. And those people that had taken the leap and said, well, hey, what do I have to lose? I'll throw in $20, and if it's worthless, I'll throw it away. And then they realize, oh my gosh, these are as good as what I get at my eye doctor. What have I been doing all these years? I mean, if you talk to anybody that shopped at Zenni, that is almost unequivocally what you will hear. That why did it take me so long? Or they're on par with anything I've bought in the past.
I imagine your retention is unbelievable. Once they get them and they say, wait, this is exactly what I'm getting at the eye doctor. Why would I ever go back? I imagine that's a characteristic of your business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's something that we're really proud of. And, we have not only just great retention, but really loyal customers, like some that are such champions for the brand and for the service. And I've even met people, in my years with the company that just anecdotally are like, oh, sometimes we don't want to talk about Zenni because we don't want it to blow up and become a big thing and have the prices change and everybody get familiar with it. And I'm like, oh no, that's the opposite of what we want to have happen. And trust me, we will never do that because, we obviously make our money on small margin but high volume. And we have controlled our own manufacturing process that we are able to really streamline all of the costs so we do not have to incur what you would incur typically from third-party partners in the manufacturing process.
And this is because you control manufacturing to some degree?
That's right. We own and operate all of our manufacturing, have since day one. That was the model. That was actually, and that really is the secret sauce to Zenni. You cannot offer the price points that we do without controlling all your suppliers and all your different third parties. And we own our facility and we continue to expand it. And that is something that has helped bring cost down. And frankly, we developed a profitable business model that doesn't take into account their companies, apply to their products. And the thing is consumers over the years have become so accustomed and immune, if you will, to prices of glasses that average up towards $300. And depending on where you buy, whether it's at your eye doctor or even at a discount retailer, taking your insurance into cost, I mean, you're still ready to pay a few $100s.
Yeah, sure. That's
the desensitization that the industry has kind of played on over the years. And it's almost, the model of fossil fuel versus cold fusion, it's possible. No one just wants to make it happen yet. Right?
Sure, yeah.
And that is something that Zenni set out to say, hey, we can do this. And it's somewhat, I mean, it's frustrating from a marketing standpoint, walking in the company and say, wow, what has occurred here that hasn't been maximized? So,
So you see so much more that could come of this.
Well, it is happening now, will continue to happen. This company will be $1 billion business in the near term. But in truth, it might have been $1 billion business already had the approach been different. But again, this is it was a long play. It was something, I think it exceeded the expectations of the founders greatly. And they've been very methodical and very sort of steady in what they've been doing. So I like this analogy that I use. I don't know, you're in Atlanta, so you probably don't know, maybe you know the In-N-Out burger chain. Have you heard of In-N-Out burger?
Yeah, sure.
So they are a famous California-based burger chain that is slowly matriculated into like the western half of the United States, but not all the way east. But they are beloved by Californians, but then also they are beloved by almost any market they drop into just because of their great quality, their service, and their low price. I like to compare Zenni to In-N-Out Burger from the standpoint of In-N-Out Burger could have competed with McDonald's if it wanted to, but never did, and still to this day doesn't. But it's just slow rolled it, tortoise in the hare, and it wins fantastically. And it's still a private company today and has lines around the corner in every store you see in America.
Are there any specific technologies that you use that make you better at your profession, automation software, organizational programs, stuff like that?
Oh gosh. I'm forgetting. I'll forget them. But besides
so yes, the answer is yes. But
besides Outlook, which is like my filing cabinet and everything else, no, we have. I mean, we have many tools, obviously, and frankly, I'm looking actively into more brand analysis tools and how the partnerships that we have really affected to move the needle. Those are things that I'm shopping for and have spoken to. But the side of the company invests greatly in a lot of different technology platforms for that, more on the performance side versus the brand side of things. I do have a little bit of a luxury to be able to not have everything need to track back to monetization and ROI positive space. I use some tools to monitor our media coverage, and I'm probably forgetting other tools that I work into, but you can't have a business like this and not lean on third-party tools. Certainly in social media, we use a variety of different platforms to manage influencers and different.
What's the most successful? Is there one that's the most successful of those for you, or is there all gain in each of them in their own way?
Yeah, it'd be hard to say, and if I'd be remiss if I call one out that was like better than the others, but I think I'm blanking on all these different platforms that we use internally. But for us, certainly, Slack is a very simple inter-office communication that is very.
We use it. We use it as well.
And I mean that is basically my day is email, Slack, and phone calls, and Zoom. So I mean, of course, Zoom is everything. Yeah. I'd say, I mean, this is the same story so many people would tell you, but now we have been introduced to Zoom and the video conferencing, which of course was, popular, but not, I think, adopted by everybody. And now we're sort of, as a courtesy, doing these calls versus just the typical teleconference. So I think that's going to stick in the standpoint of going forward. And of course,
that's interesting, Sean, because what are travel budgets going to look like in the future? I need to make a trip from San Francisco to Atlanta for this meeting.
Yes.
Well, why don't you do it by Zoom?
Yeah.
You wonder how that's going to go in the future.
Yes, exactly. So I would say that is really what I'm really curious to see, because at some point we're going to have a vaccine. At some point it's going to be safe to go out and play again. But you can't put the genie back in the bottle with basically corporate America. Either one, the employees out there recognizing that, hey, I've been able to do my job, do it successfully, deliver on my expectations, and all of it for the comfort of my home. and I enjoy that. Or the corporate side, who is like, we have been productive and been able to survive and even thrive in this without our workforce in office at a battle station, so to speak. So
why do we need to pay that real estate bill? Why do we need to pay all that stuff, right?
They'll make that decision. And then 3, if we slowly roll back into an office environment, I don't think, half of an office or a phased or a stage or, a hybrid office experience actually does any justice to what the office experience is. It's like, who wants to have a Friday office experience every day of the week, right?
Yeah.
You don't. When you go in and half the team are out, or people are taking long lunches and no one's there and it's kind of like dead. It's like, you don't have that, not only just camaraderie, but the effectiveness and the efficiency.
You'll lose in energy. You'll feel like you're going through the motions a little bit, right?
Totally. So that said, I'm going to find it really interesting to see how we evolve back and if we evolve back. But certainly the technology platform that is most critical now would be any of the many that we're using to have this conversation or otherwise. So, I think we're gonna be in a very Star Trek-y type of world going.
It's not all bad, I guess.
It took long to do it, but
our hand was forced. Is there a clear-cut path for someone who sort of wants to follow in your footsteps, become an executive? What would be some examples of good entry-level positions for them to start that climb?
Yeah, and I mean, I know this is sports business, and that's something, ironically, that I have been able to maneuver.
You've got a background with the Pac-12, so people know.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, that was really my career aspirations were to be in, if not sports marketing, somewhere in communications and sports PR and that level. So started down that road early on with a great internship at the Pac-10 at the time, but one of the things I always advise.
You just dated yourself a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a lot older than I look, but one of the things that I do advise any young kids that are looking to follow the track is, twofold. Is that there's lots of sports jobs to be had in various places. The trick is to finding ones that are sustainable for you financially, because you are looking at 70-hour work weeks, but being paid for about a 25-hour work week, in terms of revenue. So, this having been in probably the world yourself. So that was something that I noticed quickly. And I was like, I mean, I would love to be in this world because I'm going to be so good at my job, just having an inherent interest in it and the passion for it. But the struggles to keep yourself afloat and really build personal wealth or just, graduate to a different level of existence financially is really challenging until you get over that cliff into a managerial role, or it takes a decade, right?
Yeah.
And if that. So I look back on my career as one that I see former friends of mine, like David Griffin of the Hornets was a classmate of mine at Arizona State. We didn't know each other then, but we're the exact same age. And
we worked together. We worked together at NBA TV. Yeah. He's great. Yeah.
So we literally were right there, same place, same point in time. He's obviously graduated to an amazing role, but worked in Phoenix for I think 17 years or something of that nature, and and filled every role. Now, looking back, I would have loved to have been in that spot today, but the road to get there is challenging, and taxing, I think, physically on you. And so I found an avenue and able to get into technology, high tech, whether it's PR or whatnot. One thing that just really helped me is that I knew I still had a love of sports. Working at StubHub was like the perfect marriage of high tech business, emerging brand, sports-minded company, obviously speaking in entertainment, otherwise. That was, at some points a dream gig out of my career. And I was there in the early days as we were sort of growing to a household name. But then what's been so great about Zenni is that I've been able to bring in those elements that I am very astute at and very passionate about and apply them to smart marketing for our company. and then still be able to enjoy some of the byproducts of having partnerships like this.
Last question for you. I'm curious about your mental approach to your everyday, like when you're trying to do this job, when you tackle this job. Also, when you're making a deal,
Mhm.
and it's coming down to the wire. What's your mental approach as it gets down to the wire?
Oh, well, and yeah, the ideal is time to really evaluate it. The Bulls is a great example of something that literally happened in about 6 weeks' time, which is incredibly short. And people have told me since that we can't even believe that you were able to get this deal done in this amount of time. And I say, I know it was frenetic. It was incredible, and it was probably, you can only do so much diligence in that amount of time, right?
Yep.
But with an opportunity like that, if it doesn't get done, and that's not around next year. The Bulls would have a patch partner by that season, and then you're not coming around to think about it next year. So, and I think as I've done a number of these partnerships and whatnot, you see a lot of that ends up getting, as much as you have time to plot the course and start the conversation. The 49ers deal, was a 9-month kind of courtship, and long-term really had the time.
So 9 months versus 6 weeks.
Yes, exactly. So that, there was many meetings, many multiple refinement of presentations. But for me in my role, it has to, because these are, major investments that have to be assigned by our ownership. I actually am in some ways a broker too for a partnership within my company. So
okay. So you're selling it to your company.
Yes, ultimately, and helping the third party optimize what they're going to offer us. So our management and our ownership would be interested in. So I don't have the final say with multi-million-dollar investments.
Sure.
I get them situated to where I think they are going to hit all the right touch points for our ownership to be intrigued by, because our ownership has no real insights or understanding of the sports world other than just very high level. So when a team is coming at us, some of the standard fare that they would offer us normally may not work or may not resonate with our founders. And so that is what I help put together, because we know inherently a partnership with the San Francisco 49ers to be the official eyewear is great, but it has to speak to our owner to understand that, okay, these are the areas that we are going to leverage this partnership to tell our story.
Well, Sean Pate, Brand Communications Officer with Zenni, thank you so much for sharing not only your time, but your expertise. We learn a lot from when you give back like that. So thank you. And if people want to get a pair of glasses, if they want to learn more, where do they go?
Really simple. You go to zenni.com, which is zenni.com, and you will be greeted with some fantastic styles, offers. We're coming up on sale season here, so prices get even lower. And, it's a great experience. We've simplified it to the point where it's a really, really easy experience.
And I can confirm that. I went to the website last night just to learn a little bit about it. And I started meandering through some of the quote expensive frames, and we're talking like $30, $40, something like that. And they looked really nice. So I appreciate everything, Sean. I'll let you get back to your day. Again, thanks so much. So thanks again to Sean Pate of Zenni, who shows us a new wrinkle this week. We typically have guests on that work directly in sports, but sometimes, even if your job is technically outside the world of sports, there's a way to loop sports in. Thanks again, Sean.